They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Tom Hunter? What, Selby? Not Chen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello, welcome back to They're All Dead, Dave, with me, Phil.
And me, Adam.
We're covering the series finale. I almost said season, but that wouldn't be very British. We don't call things seasons in Britain. We call them series. Series 1 of Red Dwarf, because this is, of course, the Red Dwarf review podcast. And this episode is either called Me Squared or Me Too.
Pick your poison, basically. So, yeah.
If it's Me Too, it's not the social movement, okay? It's not the
it's not
movement
a very important
justice.
social movement, but it has nothing to do with Red Dwarf, rest assured.
I think it's Me Squared, because that's how it's written as it comes up on the screen.
Yeah, I think whoever was in charge...
Netflix.
I think whoever was in charge on Netflix either couldn't be bothered or didn't have the means to make it a squared icon. So it was like, Me Too, it's fine.
Their formatting may not have like the squared symbol as part of it, possibly.
Yeah. I guess when would they ever need it apart from instances like this? So if that's the case, fair enough.
But what this title does refer to is two rimmers, which, if you've been paying attention, was the cliffhanger to last week's episode.
'Twas indeed.
Which I immediately loved because earlier on in the season, we'd gotten a cliffhanger where it seemed like a game changer for the, and we were going to get the repercussions of it the next episode. And then they glossed over it the next episode with a sort of pre-title Holly blurb bit. So I'm really glad they didn't do that here.
Yeah, and it's not, it almost makes it feel like that more traditional series finale where one part directly leads into the other with consequences, I suppose. And I think we discussed last time, like, yes, it is a sitcom, so if it does just throw away that cliffhanger thing, it can sort of get away with it because of, like, the genre of the show. But it is nice that they aren't going to do that every time. Clearly there will be cliffhangers that have genuine consequences for the next episode. So yeah, I was happy about that as well.
Yeah, they can get away with doing it, but it's so much nicer when they actually follow up on what they set up.
Yeah, I love to kick off, if it's all right. With I think it was near the beginning, the whole tape of Rimmer's death. I enjoyed that it was actually quite a very like dark concept. That there was he has a recording of his own death for. But then I guess it made me think like, oh, but if I had a way of having sentience, if you like, after death, would I be curious to see how I died? I must admit, probably, especially if it was, like in Rimmer's case, very like, a quick death. I'd probably be curious. So so even though at first I was like, oh my God, why would you want that? In retrospect, I was like, actually, like, yeah, I kind of get it.
Because in the moment, you're probably not very aware of like how you die. I mean, you might know like if something is about to fall on you, you might work it out. But,
yeah.
You're not going to be that aware of the moment it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love how again, like we said in the last episode regarding like a Sony CRT TV or a Commodore 64 keyboard. I just love how you see more of these. Obviously, Rimmer's death is on a VHS tape, and they mention like. There's little references to things that obviously in the 80s were so commonplace, but to now may seem dated. But I love that they don't give them any more time and attention than just this is what it is sort of thing. I think that's what helps it work. Because, people like us now looking back, we're like, oh, he's got his death on a VHS. It almost adds extra comedy to it because it's dated. But the fact they don't address it is what makes it work, if do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you do get that with all sorts of sci-fi, don't you? Like people... in Star Trek having big like recording magnetic tape things and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
One thing, because he's starting to move into quarters with his other self, this other Rimmer hologram. And one thing that crossed my mind was, why haven't you moved before? Like, you two hate each other so much, but you're living in the same quarters when there is nobody else on the ship. There must be so many free quarters that he could have just moved into and been by himself, even without another him to move in with. Like, why have they just stuck around?
I think
together?
It's partly maybe the sitcom trope. Obviously, it's funny that they still are, but I think it's also on a subtextual level. If you've listened to this enough, you know I love a bit of subtext. I think it's my drama school training kicking in. Look for the subtext. I kind of like how I think it shows they do sort of have a symbiotic relationship in a way. Like, even though they have a lot of disagreements and arguments, like, you know, as I've said before, they're like school children a lot of the time. But, you know, it is on a deeper level. I think it is, especially as they're the only two from the crew. They need each other, you know, whether they want to admit that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. That was they do hate each other in a way, but sort of in the way that brothers do. I think in the way that kind of brothers might fight. But they kind of, you know, they're still they still love each other as well.
Yeah,
to a degree. I don't know how these two would never admit it, but
yeah, it's very much that that sibling relationship, basically. As you say, like, we all bicker and fight with our siblings, but we love them at the end of the day because it's who they are.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's nice to see. Well, not sound in a dark way, but with Rimmer's death tape, it is in a way nice to see the other members of the cast again that we see in episode 1.
We get to see Captain Hollister again.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of a nice rounding off, you know, say if, God forbid, if Red Dwarf didn't get a second series, they sort of thought, right, well, we'll show how all the death and destruction happened, so there's that closure. Because I think, you know, you wouldn't want it to be one of those cases where it is a fun mystery that you don't have to tell straight away for, like, the first few episodes. But I think if at that time, I don't know if they knew, but maybe if they made it, if they didn't know they had, like, you know, definitely a second season in the can, I'd probably do the same. I'd be like, well, I'll tell it now for closure's sake, you know. So yeah, but it was nice to see that, you know, the captain and all the others pop in a little bit.
And we get the revelation of his final words as well. Rimmer's final words.
Gazpacho soup.
Announcement.
Gazpacho soup.
Infamous.
Very cryptic.
Gazpacho soup. Very cryptic. Lister spends the rest of the episode trying to work out what this means.
He does, bless his heart.
So maybe, I don't know, should we cover what it means now, or should we come back to it later?
I think we should come back to it later. Should we progress? We'll progress through.
We'll go linearly. Linearly. I can't say that word.
In a straight line, or as straight as we can with Red Dwarf. So.
Yes. Cat again is clearly on heat because he's looking for some female cats on the ship.
Hello, testing, 111, me. Attention all lady cats. I am feeling very, very sexy. Can you hear me, lady cats? My body is available. Please form a queue. No squabbling. This is your lucky day.
So, much like last week, he's got sex on the brain.
He's got sex on the brain. And I did make a note of this. Like I did say in the last episode, it is nice to see Kat get a bit of different jokes than just that, oh, I'm looking good. It's sort, you know, they've added that extra layer. But even with this, it might just be modern sensibilities kicking in. But like with this episode, it did finish and it made me think, gee, they haven't really, in my opinion anyway, they haven't really done much with Cat apart from set up that basic parameter of he's like a cat and he thinks the world of himself, which is fine. But I don't know, maybe it's different when you watch it one a week, like that, you know, like it used to be, and you had that gap. But when you're watching, as we do, well, 2 across a week, basically, I don't know, it just doesn't, it feels less fresh to me more quickly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's, I think there have been a couple of episodes where I think we've gotten a little bit more out of Cat. So the episode where we found out about his, you know, the rest of his people and the religion and stuff felt like we got a little bit more. And last week felt like we got a little bit more. But that's, you know, only a third of the series, and the rest of the time it's been kind of the same joke again and again, as you say. So, and it kind of, I don't think we've really got much from the cat here. So probably the weakest point of the episode, I'd say, is the cat in this one.
I did write, though, I don't know what I put, Danny John Jules is a madman on them rollerblades.
Oh, so, yeah.
Because let's put it this way, he knows how to rollerblade. There's some of those sharp turns. I was like, that's what I love though about Cat. Like more, again, adding something as simple as rollerblades added, really cemented that, in a way, the fabulousness of the character. Because I can't remember which scene specifically, but there was one point where he rolled in and he did this really sharp turn and he like sort of moved his body with it, and it was like a perfect Cat, body movement. And I think it would have looked a lot worse if Danny John Jules didn't know how to rollerblade and tried to do it. Because, they're not the same, but they have some similar principles. I used to be a figure skater on ice, and there are some principles of figure skating that are similar to rollerblading. So I think maybe as well, seeing him do those really like sharp turns and finishes, I was like, okay, you've done the work, you've put in the practice, but... Yeah,
I did feel they've almost like they've reached into the future and listened to me, and have in a very meta way acknowledged my criticism of the ship being very grey in this episode, because they at one point Rimmer is getting the scuttlers to repaint the ship from ocean grey to military grey.
That's the new military grey bit there, and that's the dowdy old and nasty ocean grey bit there. Or is it the other way around?
Yeah.
And even he's not sure which one is which.
I think they have gone forward, to listen to you, because I think it's almost would you argue it's like poking fun at itself in a way?
I think it is, yeah. I think it is very aware of the fact. I think all the grey stuff, even though visually it's not very interesting for us as an audience, I think it is very deliberate and probably there for a reason. Probably to sort of emphasize the sort of the environment, because it's a mining ship, the sort of drudgery environment that they were in before the ship, and the kind of work environment that they were in. So it probably serves a purpose narratively and sort of symbolically
somewhere along the way.
But it just isn't very interesting to look at.
No,
which is why I love it when we get shots of the ship from the outside, because then the vibrant red is great. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you as well, there was some early moments between the two leads where the chat was almost what I consider, and some would argue it's a controversial phrase, but like locker room talk. But
okay.
But I would argue, I can't remember specific. I think that it was that, the one-upmanship thing that they do, but about topics a bit more seedy. But in their defense, I think because of the character relationships, I didn't mind it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember. I didn't write anything down about that, so...
Yeah, I just think we've had a few... There was that one in where... Was it Rimmer pretended to be Kachansky? Where we said there were a few jokes where we thought, ooh, that's a bit off-kilter. Maybe in today's society, it's a bit off-kilter to hear. And I remember the one I brought up was the one about Rimmer's dad committing suicide, if you remember. Yeah. To me, that felt very off-kilter, but not in a funny way. I think this one excuses it, because whilst it feels like, lads being lads, if you want to put it bluntly, but I think it served them as characters. It wasn't necessarily degrading to anyone in particular.
No, I didn't. I don't think I got that impression, particularly. Although given the title of the episode, maybe it is Me Too.
Again, maybe they've travelled forward in the future, and they've
time traveling Red Dwarf writers.
They've seen the hellhole that the modern world has become. But I don't know. I felt maybe it was important to mention, because I think that whole thing about what they call boys being boys or whatever. Like, I don't support it. I don't, I wouldn't want people, say, talking ill about, or talking about whether it's women or anything like that derogatory way. But here it's not severe at all. But also I think, again, in terms of their dynamic, which is the crux of this episode as well, I think it serves it. Yeah.
And what I think I have to keep reminding myself is that these characters, even Lister, I mean, you think Lister's meant to be... You could make the mistake of thinking he's meant to be the one that everyone's always rooting for, but because against Rimmer, he is, when you pit him against Rimmer. But on the whole, everyone on this ship has unlikable qualities, and that's very deliberate. They're not meant to be heroes. They're just people that have a lot of flaws. Dave is a slob. Rimmer is Lister's a slob. Rimmer's Rimmer.
A job's worth.
Yeah, job's worth annoying and
but
lots
of the worst
things.
kind. If you follow the rules of your job, fantastic. But you know what I mean? The worst kind of job's worth.
Yes. When he only cares about the rules when they serve him, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But in a way, like, because obviously there's two Rimmers in this one. That's the pull. I like how, sort of with the last episode, Confidence and Paranoia, we said Confidence and Paranoia was sort of the two splits and flaws and perks of Lister's character, whereas Rimmer sort of has that same thing in this episode, but only with himself. You know, it's not a new actor. It's back to that thing of it's Chris Barry playing himself. But I think he does a great job as an actor to not just play... Because I don't know how to explain it. They are the same character, of course they are, but I feel the copy Rimmer... He does a great job of showing like Rimmer, like the worst of Rimmer's flaws, basically. So you can still tell they're two separate entities in a way.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that I found a little bit confusing about it, because they are meant to be exactly the same, and the point of it is that to show that he is so how annoying he is to live with that even he finds himself annoying to live with. I think.
Yeah.
But they do, the way it's portrayed, the one that is, we assume is the copy, or the newer one, does have a more extreme personality.
I think it's like we're saying, like with Confidence and Paranoia, those were two elements of Lister that were heightened. You know, they were made to be exaggerated versions. And I think maybe that's what they were going for also with this version of Rimmer. It is, as we say, like elements of Rimmer's personality sort of pushed to the nth degree. Yeah,
but what I didn't... I would have thought they would have both been elevated at the same rate and both been, you know, shouting at the other one. But it was very much more like one was putting down the other. Whereas you'd think they would be putting down each other. And
see, I sort of put it down to like how, you know how I said in the last episode, the Confidence and Paranoia for Lister was very much, to me at least, came across the message of about balance, how you sort of need both, but not necessarily tip to one extreme. I would argue regular Rimmer obviously has his flaws, as we see, that have highs and lows. But I'd say overall he does have balance, whereas this copy version of Rimmer is like a version of Rimmer without that balance completely. So
I suppose the copied version of Rimmer would have been from the point that he would have been, however they scan them in or whatever they do to generate these holograms in the first place, from that point. Whereas our Rimmer has had those, I don't know how long it's been, 6 months or whatever the in-universe time has been, living with Lister to maybe soften him a little bit. Maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah, like... it is a fine line, isn't it, when you're trying to deal with extremities of characters' personalities, because you say you want it to come across, but is there a line where it tips over into being like, okay, maybe this is a bit too unbalanced and not necessarily serving the story or the characters in the best way?
Yeah.
If that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just it's something about the way they were acting so radically different from each other just didn't seem to quite work on a logical level, which, you know, this is a sitcom, not everything's going to be logical, but it just seemed to, I don't know, it just didn't quite work for me.
That's fair enough. What did you think? Because obviously anyone who's listened to this show knows you're a big Holly fan. What did you think of Holly's April Fool's joke scene?
Oh, I love that. That was great.
Yeah.
Holly making up about the fact that there was an overdue electricity bill. Or initially that, what was it? They were the only company left because everyone else had gone bankrupt, but David left a light on or something like that.
April Fool.
But it's not April.
Yeah, I know, but I could hardly wait 6 months with a red-hot jape like that under my belt.
Yeah, so again, a Red Dwarf explanation, to put it lightly, but I must admit, in my notes at first I wrote, when he started that whole scene, I was like, where has this subplot come from? I was like, what's going on? Which made it funnier when he revealed it was an April Fool's, because I genuinely was taken along for the ride. I was like, whoa, hang on. I was getting ready to, severely critique, like, why are they doing this subplot now? Why is this being introduced? But, classic Holly, it's all just a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I really enjoyed that scene.
Eventually, the two Rimmers have had enough of each other, or more specifically, our Rimmer has had enough of the other one, because he comes in sort of very subdued back into Lister's room, and sort of after having an argument with blazing row with himself, with the other him, and it sort of shows what he's driven himself to. But it's like quite clear he's like, I'll just sleep here, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And he seems like a beaten man at that point.
Yeah, I think he's a man at the end of his rope, isn't he? I think that's it. He's just accepted that he's been in a way like cracked by himself, which is quite meta when you think about it. When people talk about having, personal crises, it's often ourselves beating each other up. And just again to focus on, like we said last time about the message of the whole thing. Again, I don't know why I get like this serious subtext, but I almost viewed it as a thing of like mental health. How, because we all have subconsciously like our voice, ourselves inside our head, and that heightened element, like the worst elements of Rimmer's personality, basically right in front of him, telling him not just in his head but right in front of him, and he said it sort of beat him in a way, and I found that was very poignant, but also sad in a way that because I have friends who have been, should we say, overcome by their own mind, if you like, their own doubts, their own fears, their own extremities. So I don't know. That's just what I got from it. Not in like an awful way. I just felt, when he's coming in all sort of defeated, I was like, oh man, he's beating himself up, as they say.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm very aware I'm probably the only person who will ever take that away from it ever. But I just felt it was worth saying. If anything, it's a new take on things. So
yeah, I did find it interesting seeing like all of Rimmer's sort of worst personality traits reflected back at him, and him getting frustrated with them. And they go through different ones, like how he's like always trying to get Rimmer up at the crack of dawn to do stuff, and like come on Rimmer, you're being lazy, but when it's turned on him, he's like, oh, can't we just rest? Oh no, we got to keep going, and things like that. And then in the cinema, he sort of shows when they go to the cinema, and the other one comes in and sits right in front of him, and then he goes and sits in front of that one, and it just shows Rimmer's childishness.
That cinema scene reminded me of so many bad experiences with various patrons in the cinema. I mean, jumping ahead slightly, but that was my favourite scene. I think partly because of how much I laughed, because it made me think of real life experiences of basically people in the cinema being awful for no reason, and it just made me laugh. So yeah, I'd say that was my favourite little scene.
Talking of things that date it to the 80s, as we have done at various points, though, smoking in the cinema. I
can't believe that was ever a thing.
I know. That's crazy.
I mean, that's times. When did they stop smoking in the cinema?
Well, I don't know, because I can't remember people smoking in the cinema in like the 90s. So
it must have been, because it was definitely before they did the general, indoor smoking ban in the 2000s.
Oh yeah, definitely before that. Yeah.
And I remember someone said like, and was it cinemas? Oh no, it was planes. My dad used to travel. Sorry guys, this is a tangent. I'll be dead quick. But he used to travel a lot on planes, but like the double-decker ones they used to have. And he said upstairs upstairs was smoking free, but economy was smoking. But I'm like, but smoke rises. So what effect does this achieve? But I mean, obviously now the concept to any person my age, smoking on a plane is like, what? That's ridiculous. That's several health and safety violations waiting to happen. But I guess we have to remember back then that was just, like in cinemas, that was just the thing.
I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but I'm pretty sure I am just about old enough to remember smoking on planes.
Right.
But I might have to Google that. When did...
I'd imagine that'd be horrible. Stuck on a metal box, thousands of feet in the air, surrounded by other people's smoke. It's just...
When did smoking stop on planes in the UK?
You're all enjoying our side topic.
Smoking ban was introduced by British Airways in 1990. That's what it says. It says afterwards, Virgin, and it was an airline by airline thing. I think there wasn't a law.
Like one starts and all the others follow suit.
Yeah, so I think possibly in the very early 90s, I went on a plane where smoking was allowed in part of the plane, which doesn't really help because
it doesn't make sense.
You're in a
though,
small
as we
narrow
say.
tube. It's going to travel.
It's just sorry for the side plot, guys, but the bottom line is smoking on planes is stupid, and it always was.
Smoking in public confined areas is not pleasant.
Yeah, like if you're out there and you're a smoker, that's your choice. Fair enough, but all I'm saying is I'm glad we now have an indoor smoking ban. That's all I'll say. We must talk about gazpacho soup.
Yes, well, let's talk about the whole ending because eventually Lister decides that it's all just too much having two rimmers around and the one of them must go, and he does a eeny, meeny, miny, mo type thing to pick which one it is. And it turns out he picks the original rimmer is going to get turned off. So they march to the drive room, and one of my funniest moments was a line which was, "If you can't attend the odd execution," which was the other rimmer saying about the other one getting turned off, which I found quite funny. And then Lister asks the rimmer that's going to be saved to leave because he's being rude about it or whatever, and he leaves. And then finally he gets, because he's about to die, rimmer will get turned off. Rimmer admits what happened with gazpacho soup, and I felt for him a little bit here.
Yeah,
because I too. Well, what happened?
I mean, it's that whole thing of he was, because what was it? He was about getting invited to the captain's table, and with the gazpacho soup, you meant to have it cold, but he decided to heat it up, and then they all took the pee out of him basically, and
he sent it back, didn't he? He had a massive go at the waiter and sent it back. And everyone laughed at him because apparently gazpacho soup is meant to be served cold. Now, I only know that gazpacho soup is meant to be served cold because of Red Dwarf. So, admittedly...
Well, so did I. I'd never had gazpacho soup,
I
so
learned
it was news
this
to me.
from a young age, but only because of Red Dwarf. So, had I been in a similar situation, I would have also not known that it was... I probably wouldn't have had to go at the waiter about it, but I would have been like, oh, is this cold?
I mean, on one hand, I like the fact that it's not, it's not this big grand thing. It's actually something quite menial and quite, because it's rimmer as well. So of course it's a big deal because it's blown out of proportion. But I must admit, I didn't find it laugh out loud funny. I was like, okay, yeah, I'd say I get the concept. I did feel sorry for him, like you said. But I don't know, maybe it wasn't I don't know what kind of payoff I was hoping for. I try not to do that, place expectations as you're watching it, because you're almost always going to get let down. But I don't know, whatever my brain was in the mood for as the payoff, that wasn't it. I don't
and
think.
It kind of.
I don't know what I would have replaced it with. But...
He sort of says that's why he never got promoted. He's always looking for someone else or something else to blame for him not getting promoted. Sometimes it's Lister, some holding him back. Sometimes, in this instance, it's the fumble with the gazpacho soup. Nothing to do with the fact that he, he's just not officer material. And he's not very good at his job, probably.
That's the bottom line.
Actually,
I'd break it the hard way.
I said I've never been in a situation like that. I have just remembered a situation. Not exactly like that, but quite similar.
Oh, go on.
I had a meal with my family. I can't remember what we were celebrating, but we had dinner at the Dorchester Hotel, I think it was, in London. It's one of the big hotels in London. And we had dinner there. And we had our one course. And then the waiter brought over a little plates of sorbet for everyone.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why I was brought sorbet. And I said to the waiter, I didn't order any sorbet. Not in a horrible, like, why have you brought me this way? But just like in a confused, I don't know why I'm getting sorbet type way. Now I know it's something they do in posh restaurants. It's a palate cleanser, apparently, that you get automatically between meals. But I had never heard of this concept before in my life. And I was very confused, and I embarrassed myself by saying to the waiter, I didn't order this.
Don't worry, mate. If there's anything I hate, it's dinner etiquette. I can't start. Just have your food, eat it how you want, and we can all crack on with our lives.
Yeah,
that's my mantra. Anyway. But I know
maybe maybe that experience is what makes me sympathise very much with Rimmer here. I feel for him.
Yeah, personal experience. But I mean, I will admit the joke about, you know, obviously the soup thing, as we say, is quite like a menial thing. I think Lister was expecting, you know, this really big thing, and obviously that's not it. So he's obviously going to take the mick out of Rimmer for the rest of his life. But then he says, "Oh no, I'm promise, I'm not gonna make any soup jokes." And then he finishes by saying "super," which I must admit, when you look at it, it's a very simple joke, but it did make me laugh. I think partly because of Craig Charles's delivery, you know, just the way he says it with that smug grin on his face, it really made me laugh. And I thought that's a nice little way to end series 1, because if that had been it, if there was no series 2, you've ended on a nice joke and you've tied up, I think, not all the loose ends, but some of the major ones. You know, how did all the crew die? Mm-hmm. What is Cat? What's the religion behind it? You know, you've established those major bits. I just thought it was a nice simple way to end season 1. Things don't have to be big and bombastic. You know, it was nice. I liked it.
Yeah, I was thinking that initially when I rewatched it, I was thinking, oh, that was quite a low key. That's a shame it wasn't like something a bit more exciting. But no, maybe you're right. Maybe it doesn't need that. It did tie up things. I think the only thing that's possibly still dangling is Kachansky, I guess. You know, Dave's Lister's constant like desire to try and get the hologram of Kachansky has been a sort of running thing throughout this series, and that hasn't been sort of resolved at all yet. So
right, yeah,
maybe.
Also, I mean, what I wanted to bring up was I noticed looking at some dates, because I love my dates. I noticed that series 1 of Red Dwarf went out in like February, March of 1988, and series 2 aired in the later months of 1988, so the same year. So I'm thinking, I mean, they must have filmed series 1 late 1987, because that's the year that comes up in the credits. So I'm thinking, with the ending being sort of a not definitive the end, but it's also, you know, you could carry it on. I wonder, maybe by then, did they have a series 2? Did they have a series 2 confirmed? Or, I don't know, I'm just curious, like...
Maybe. That is quite...
But I think, as I say, again, if it was just a series 1, that's a fine ending, I think.
Yeah. I don't think it would have... I don't think we'd still be talking about it now if it was just a series 1, though. It kind of...
it's probably it's not that odd little show.
Yeah, that like very few people will have heard of, but it's still going relatively strong. I mean, there was a new special this last year, so it's still going. Even now, what? When did this air again? 1989, did you say?
Early 1988.
88.
This one aired.
God, so what's that? I've got to work that out now.
33 years ago.
33 years ago, wow.
Yeah.
And they're still making them. Not at a very pacey pace, I would say.
But they're still making them.
They're still making them.
With the same casts as well.
Every few years, they make another one. So, what would you give it out of 5 Scuttlers?
Ooh, I'd give it a solid 4. Yeah,
okay.
As I say, there were moments that didn't necessarily click with me as much, like I've already said about the whole soup payoff thing. It's fine, but it didn't just click with me. Yeah, I think we said parts of the duplicate Rimmer maybe being a bit too much, like we said, of what he's supposed to represent. Yeah, but on the whole, as I say, it's a good finale for the first season. It leaves you wanting more. It leaves you looking back thinking, yeah, I've had a good time with these 6 episodes on the whole. Do you know what I mean? Like, as someone who's just finished series 1 for the first time, I do want to see more, and I'm looking back on series 1 thinking, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's a fun little show. So I think it, again, like we said with the first episode, it does what it needs to do, and it does it well.
Yeah, I've given it slightly less again, much like last episode. I've given it half a point less than you have, and given it 3.5. Okay. It's fine. It is. I do concede that it does wrap up the series quite nicely. I just think that there were some bits in it that they just weren't as funny as they could have been. And that whole business with the 2 Rimmers, I don't get why they were so different from each other. I actually think it would be funnier if they were more similar to each other than one more dominating the sort of aggression. But you know, there were some good bits. Oh, and another sort of negative was the cat as well in this episode. Kind of, there wasn't that much interesting about him in this episode. So, it's still enjoyable. I still enjoyed watching it. I don't think there's been an episode of this series which I've thought I didn't like that. So,
yeah, no, there's not been a complete dud for me at all. You know, I've liked to a degree all of the episodes we've seen, and as we move forward into season 2, I can't wait to see more. I can't wait to see what new members we get or how the original crew develop. I'm just excited to see more, quite frankly.
Yeah, me too. All right then. Well, that's about it, I guess. We're rolling on to series 2 next time.
Yeah, we are. Exciting.
What changes will that bring? I can't remember, to be honest. I know I've watched these all before, but I haven't watched them all in at least 10 years. So
it'll all come flooding back.
It's all a bit fuzzy. So. But I'm glad you're eager to carry on. We haven't put you off after the first series.
Yeah, I think it's got all the elements that would keep people interested, you know, that would want you to come back for more. It's got fun characters, fun scenarios, good jokes, most importantly for a sitcom, good jokes. There's nothing I hate worse than bad jokes or just jokes that don't connect. But yeah, the humour of this, for the most part, is very much in line with my way of thinking, so we're all right there.
And if you want to join us for that journey into Series 2, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. If it maybe my YouTube channel, maybe on Apple Podcasts, if we've got it on there by now. I don't know. I haven't even started to think about that yet. Wherever you are, subscribe, like, share it around if you know other Red Dwarf fans. And don't forget to check us out elsewhere on the internet. If you're not listening on YouTube, you can find me at Philip Hawkins. There are many Philip Hawkinses on YouTube, but the me is me in front of some TARDIS roundels. You'll find it. There's lots of Doctor Who videos on there. You'll be able to spot the channel easily from that. And Adam, where can they find you?
So YouTube, Adam Martyn with a Y. I should just pop up. I make videos on a variety of stuff. Doctor Who, classic TV presentation. There's a bit for everyone, really. So go and check us out there. And on Twitter, I'm Adam Martyn Actor, where I post giveaways from time to time and just tweet about, well, usually a load of nonsense, but people seem to like it, so that's all right. But yeah, Twitter and YouTube for me.
Well, we will see you for Series 2.
See you later.